For all the messed up, manipulative, and downright villainous things that Mysterio did in Far From Home, you've got to give the guy a bit of credit for being pretty smart. No, I'm not referring to all the drones and illusions and fancy technology. That stuff is whatever. I mean, Mysterio's actually kinda wise. Spoiler alert, but his final words, quote, "People will believe anything you tell them to," is actually an extremely profound and meaningful thing to say, especially within the context of how he said it. In the final showdown between Peter Parker and Quentin Beck, after Parker has uncovered all of Beck's tricks and facades, the unthinkable happens. A gun misfires and hits Mysterio, killing him. I mean, I guess that's pretty thinkable. It's a superhero movie filled with fights and battles and weapons, but still, it was surprising. Mysterio had been utilizing some fancy weaponized drones to attack Spider-Man, but a rogue bullet found its way into him.
It enables you to...
allowing Spider-Man to win the battle and reclaim his fancy Edith glasses that Tony Stark gifted to him. Then he gifted to Mysterio, then he took them back. It's a whole long thing. Once back in control of Edith, Spidey's able to shut down all the drones, but it's a bit too little too late as Mysterio had already been hit. In his final breaths, he utters the memorable quote, "People will believe anything you tell them to." First of all, it seems like an odd time to share a teachable moment with your arch-nemesis. He has mere seconds to live and decides it's as good a time as ever to drop some wisdom on the guy he was literally just fighting. Seriously, if your entire mission is to take out one individual, and you spend all of your time and energy and resources and everything on defeating this one guy, what's the logic in sharing some useful advice? Especially when you have a handful of moments left to live, why use those thoughts and words on the guy you so clearly hate? There must be a motive behind those words. They must mean something deeper, something that Mysterio needs to say in order for his plan to still feel successful. It's not like that bullet suddenly caused him to turn a new leaf and he suddenly wanted to help Spider-Man. That just isn't how villains work. Unless that is what happened. I admittedly don't understand villain psychology all the time. Following the whole overseas fiasco, Peter returns to New York with his newfound girlfriend MJ. In the post-credits scene, we see the new couple enjoying their honeymoon phase for about 4 seconds before it comes crumbling down. On a large screen, we see a news report featuring J. Jonah Jameson outing Peter Parker as Spider-Man, and then declaring him a dangerous threat while showing doctored footage of Spider-Man being responsible for Mysterio's demise. Okay, so Mysterio clearly doctored some footage to make it look like Spider-Man is guilty, when in fact, he's definitely not. In true Mysterio fashion, his final words ring true, as people will now believe what they've been told, and Spider-Man will be labeled a menace and a villain. After all, nobody knew that Mysterio was a fake. They still believed him to be a hero. And Spider-Man, according to the footage, has been caught red-handed killing their hero. That's not a good look for Peter Parker. For those of you saying, it couldn't have been Mysterio because he died, someone else must have doctored the footage and sent it in. I say, yeah, sure, that's possible too. After all, there was that scene where one of Mysterio's buddies, the guy who programmed all the drones and a fellow disgruntled ex-Stark employee, downloads something suspicious. That very well could have been the footage that we see in the post-credits scene, which would leave Mysterio's condition just as big of a, well, mystery. Whether it was Quentin doing it or someone working on his behalf with the same intention, that footage was definitely doctored to frame Spider-Man for a reason. Beyond the gotcha moment framing Peter Parker, that one sentence packed way more of a punch. There are actually quite a few ways in which this sentence could be interpreted. It's just 8 simple words, but there's a slew of depth and meaning to it. Why did Mysterio choose to say that? And what did he mean by it? Well, for starters, it probably means he isn't actually dead. Yeah, it's probably not a great idea to believe anything about this guy who notoriously tricks people constantly.
You should have seen your faces!
Even when it comes to his passing. You play enough pranks and soon enough people just aren't gonna believe you. It's like The Boy Who Cried Wolf, or Andy Kaufman. The one undeniably established fact is that Mysterio cannot be trusted or believed. As he's about to die, he literally tells Peter that people are easily tricked. This coming from the notoriously villainous illusionist. Why would anyone believe that he's actually dead?
You guys are losers.
The guy just faked element monster attacks on multiple occasions, and yet everyone trusts that he actually got hit with a tiny little bullet? That's complete and utter nonsense.
Swag.
Clearly the guy is lying. He pretty much says it right to Peter's face that he's not actually dying. This is all just yet another illusion. He's kind of hiding in plain sight, stating his intentions so clearly that no one would even consider it a possibility. While the quote says you can, quote, tell people anything, what Mysterio actually does is shows them. In a roundabout way, he's making a commentary on people's gullibility and how easily they'll believe things. It's almost as if he's secretly gloating. While in the process of dying, he expresses how easily he could trick everyone into thinking he's dying. That's pretty meta. Mysterio didn't actually die, he simply used the concept of his own death to frame Peter Parker and portray him in a negative light. Using your own death to try and prove someone's false guilt is some next-level bad guy thinking, and you gotta give Quentin credit for that one. Not everyone could go there. After all, Mysterio had to pass away in order for the doctored footage to be useful. Quentin does an excellent job of pointing the finger of blame at Spider-Man while using the news and J. Jonah Jameson as a vehicle to do so. It should be noted that Jameson is once again being portrayed by J.K. Simmons, which is just some of the best news imaginable. The footage shows Peter being caught in the act, completely red-handed. Even if it isn't true, people will believe what they're told, right? Quentin is clearly responsible for this footage, and he's yet again gloating to Peter because there's nothing he can do about it. Morals are irrelevant in this war. Right or wrong, correct or false, none of it matters. Mysterio already successfully convinced the masses, so to him, the battle is won. Peter is now labeled a villain because of the evidence, so that now becomes widely accepted as the truth, even if it isn't.
He's a menace to the entire city! I want that wall-crawling arachnid prosecuted!
In fact, I think this is Marvel's way of commenting on a larger issue that currently plagues our actual world, which is misinformation.
Putting chemicals in the water!
Sometimes movies, or art for that matter, do a wonderful job of commenting on society as a whole. I believe this is what Marvel was doing here. Right now, we're currently faced with an incredibly important epidemic, false info and how easily it can be spread. You see, the internet is a wonderful thing, but it's also a dangerous thing, and it's gotten somewhat out of hand. People, brands, publications, even some news outlets can share whatever they'd like.
I'm not finished.
You can go online right now and write a blog post claiming that birds aren't real and that they're simply robotic drones being controlled by the government, and if enough people read it and agree with you, then that somehow becomes a universally agreed upon fact. Literally anyone with an internet connection can speak their mind online, and with enough support can convince people whatever they'd like. The line between opinion and fact is completely and utterly blurred. Accuracy is less important than the sheer number of people who agree, which is a very dangerous thing. You see, for years, journalists were the gatekeepers of information. They told you what you needed to know, and you could count on it being the truth. Now, news companies are all privately owned by investors with interests of their own, and the 24-hour news cycle has turned journalism into nothing more than a for-profit entertainment business. So, Mysterio telling Peter, people will believe anything you tell them to, is Marvel's way of personifying the issue. Mysterio is the epitome of clickbait and fake news and doing whatever it takes to get attention and eyeballs. He knows full well the era in which we live, where you just need to be convincing, not completely truthful.
They got stuff that'll whack your brain permanently.
It's unfortunately the reality in which we currently live, and Mysterio is simply manipulating the system for his own benefit. Perhaps this will become somewhat of a running theme for future Spider-Man movies. I'm pretty sure Mysterio will be back, and with that, a slew of headaches for Peter Parker to fight for not only justice but the truth as well. He needs to clear his name and restore his image, which will be difficult to do because, that footage. Marvel's in a strong position to tell the story of truth conquering misinformation.
Well, you turned him against me. Now what?
Spider-Man clearing his name and finally defeating Mysterio once and for all would be their way of showing the current struggle and how we, as a society, must overcome it. Mysterio represents misinformation while Spider-Man represents the truth. What do you think Mysterio's final sentence meant? And do you think it's the last that we've seen of him? Or will he be back in future Marvel releases to once again be a thorn in Spider-Man's side? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section down below. We may even use your comment in an upcoming video, so be on the lookout for your name. Before you go, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to Behind the Screen to stay up to date on all of our latest releases. Until next time, bye!